trans shooting in Rhode Island. Another insane transgender man who thought he was a woman murdered his ex-wife and his own son. Here's a picture of trans shooter Robert Gorgon, who went by Roberta, but the media continue to pretend that Robert being transgender had nothing to do with the shooting. The Boston Globe, the New York Times today continued to deliberately refer to Robert as the shooter, never mentioning that he was also transgender, never mentioning that he was a ticking time bomb and that trans violence continues to get worse. The Canada mass shooting last week, the shooter was transgender. The Annunciation Catholic Church shooter was transgender. The Nashville Christian shooter was transgender. The Colorado Springs shooter was transgender. The Denver shooter was transgender. The Aberdeen shooter was transgender. Charlie Kirk shooter had a furry obsession and a transgender boyfriend. Donald Trump's attempted assassin used they, them pronouns and also was obsessed with furries. Yet the left continue to pretend that trans violence is not a problem. Obviously it is. With us now, Chief Patient Officer at the wellness company, Dr. Drew Pinsky. Hormones, multiple, dozens of surgeries, numerous daily medications in some cases. This is the daily life for anyone who's transitioning. So what does that do to the brain? And do you think there's a connection between the increase in trans violence and what people are putting in their bodies?
There either has to be underlying conditions that are predisposing to some of these desires that are being either poorly treated, undertreated, or not treated at all, and B, giving people these dangerous hormones. Again, somebody who is actually treated as a transgender in adolescence with hormones is told they're going to be needing dangerous medication the rest of their life, rather than just here, take this, do these surgeries. These are dangerous interventions. At minimum, they're making things worse. And certainly, in the cases you brought up tonight, not making things better.
Okay, and innocent people are being killed. This is the other part of the story that's not getting addressed. Gender reassignment surgery, sex change operations, what we used to call them, is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and then you add the medication, and all of the other networks suddenly are afraid to talk about this, but maybe there's a connection. Take a look.
By Pfizer.
ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Pfizer. Making a difference. Brought to you by Pfizer.
CNN Tonight, brought to you by Pfizer. Early Start, brought to you by Pfizer. Friday night on Aaron Burnett Out Front, brought to you by Pfizer.
This Week with George Stephanopoulos is brought to you by Pfizer.
All right, Dr. Drew Finnerty is not brought to you by Pfizer, but does that need to stop?
Oh, yes. The capture is wild. Listen, high-dose estrogen replacement is pennies. It's not something that Pfizer is capitalizing on. But the fact that they have capture of the news media in order to sustain them financially, this is the problem.